sometimes, always sometimes. Anyway, cool. So just since this one is kind of expanding on the Octalysis talk I did earlier, just really making more progress, I would like to first understand a bit of who was here for my last talk. Can you raise your hand? Okay, who was not here? I'm just deciding how much I should go over, quickly go over basic stuff. Who was not here? Okay, few people. All right, so I'm going to go through some basic things of the Octalysis framework that I talked about, but more just jump into the actual process of starting from a problem, right? So I guess I'll just quickly do an intro for myself again. I'm Yukai Chow, and this apparently isn't working. Let's try this again. Plug it in. The amazing thing about technology is that, all right, I'm going to use my finger on the keyboard. Yeah, so I'm Yukai Chow again, Guild leader, did a lot of stuff in gamification, did it for 10 years, and do it for a living. So, all right, so since we talk about the design process, I'd like you guys to start off with a problem, right? You can write it down, you don't have to, just in your head. Figure out something that you want to improve, and this problem needs to deal with human motivation. It could be like motivation with your customers, you want them to buy something. It could be users online, you want them to click or sign up to a forum. It could be clients, could be your employees, you want them to work harder. Could be your teammates or yourself, want to work out more. So just have that in mind, and as it goes through the process, just think about how you would define certain things and figure it out. All right, so since this talk is about human-focused design, just quickly going over what that is, right? So human-focused design, I think, is the core essence of gamification as opposed to function-focused design, and it's really about optimizing for human behavior. Because there are startups that come to me and say, hey, Yukai, my startup's amazing. Users can do this, they can do this, they can do that. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm happy that your users can do so many things, but you haven't told me why they would want to do it, right? And that's the problem for most product and most startups. It's the product is amazing. Maybe it's powerful, all these features, but there's no motivation into it, right? And sometimes the biggest competitor of a company, a product, or startup is not another company, not another product. It's just sloth, laziness. I've told there's some people come to say, hey, there's no reason why my customers wouldn't use my product, right? It saves them time, it saves them money, it makes their life easier. And sometimes, sure, sometimes even the customer will say, yeah, there's no reason why I wouldn't use your product. It saves me time, it saves me money, it makes my life better. Yeah, but I'll do it tomorrow, right? And that means never. So you want to really think about how do you not just optimize for function, what you can get out of it, but more optimize on motivation and engagement. So like I said, I'd like to say function-focused design is like a factory. You assume people in the factory will do their work, and you optimize for output and production. Whereas human-focused design is like a theme park. You make it really fun, and you predict that people will line up for hours to enjoy the experience. And the reason why we call it gamification is because games have mastered human-focused design. Basically, there's no game out there that you have to play, basically, right? In most situations, you can choose not to play. You can play any game you want. There's no real function. And when games constantly have to battle the challenge, why? Why play my game? Because you're not doing your taxes through it. You have to do your taxes, right? You're not doing your taxes. You don't have to play this game. So why? That is what game companies think about all the time. And so because they spend so much time thinking about motivation and engagement, we call it gamification. And just quickly, if you guys want to see, if you're new here, if you want to see a lot of gamification examples with ROI stats, you go to bit.ly/game, capital ROI, and there's a lot of stats with numbers. Cool. So I want to first start with quickly going over the Octalysis framework, what that is, then go really deep into the 8 core drives. Because last time I said, hey, these are all the 8 concepts. It's cool, but it's a little abstract, I believe. Like a lot of people say, oh yeah, it sounds cool, but how does that apply to me? How do I apply this? Is this just from games? How do I see this in the real life, in the real world, right? So I want to go deeper into that, and to do a quick review, in the 8 core drives, those are the motivations, the core drive that I believe that motivates people to do everything they do. So everything you do comes from one or more of these 8 core drives, beyond sensation, and then there's the game mechanics. So. And as we remember, there's the epic meaning calling, development accomplishment, empowerment of creativity, feedback, ownership, possession, social influence, scarcity, unpredictable avoidance. And if we remember, there's the left brain core drives, logic, calculations, ownership, right brain, which is creativity. Left brain is more about extrinsic motivation, getting something, obtaining something. Right brain is just having fun, enjoying the experience in itself. And then we have the white hat, which is you feel more powerful, you feel inspired. And then you have the black hat, which you feel like it motivates you to do things, but you feel like you're not in control, like you're gambling, right? It's like, oh, I can't get out of gambling, but it's motivating. Cool. And then so after you understand all that process, then you come back into this, and you really understand what game mechanics or game techniques you can use. And like I told you, like if one of the ways to play with the analysis in different core drives is to check out Octalysis, ukaiChat.com/octalysis.html. You can play with the different core drives. Useful stuff. And then a quick review on Octalysis level 2, which is applying those 8 core drives into the 4 experience rate discovery, which is why do even people want to start using the product. Back there, a gentleman just approached me and said, hey, we have an amazing product and it sells to a lot of CIOs, and we know that if CIOs are engaged with the product, they'll fall in love with it. But we just don't know how, if they're in a conference, they walk by our booth, they would check it out and they would really like it, but we just can't get them to just click on a link and sign up for a web-based product. So that's discovery, right? What is the motivation for a CIO to try something out, to discover an experience, right? One of the 8 core drives. Onboarding, how do you teach them the tools to play the game, the rules, the base, how to set them up, scaffolding, which is their regular journey, and then end game, which is how do you get your veterans to stay engaged. And so for each phase, based on how well you push your 8 core drives, you can see different charts and graphs. And if you do this enough, you can just look at this and be like, oh, well, your problem is right there, scaffolding, right? There's no motivation, and therefore, obviously, no one stays and they drop out. And then eventually you apply it to the 4 player types and or on any other things, and then you kind of figure out how different people feel at different stages. So just a quick review if you missed out. You can also go to octalysis.com to read more about it. So this talk, I want to make it a little bit more focused on implementation design, how to actually do it yourself, right? So I wanted to cover a few concepts and a few step-by-step process about, for example, how I work with my clients to get to that process. So first of all, a lot of people ask me about, okay, so our game, like we are a very serious company, right? Our employees, we don't want to show them a game, it's distracting and all that stuff. So I usually break down gamification implementation 2 types, explicit and implicit. Explicit is an implementation where users actually play a game. So this is kind of like the McDonald's Monopoly game. You can opt into the game, you can choose to play the game, you play by collecting the stuff, you eat more burgers and stuff. So it's opt-in, opt-out based. This is also similar with simulations, with training programs, stuff like that. Now, there's also implicit gamification, which is kind of like a doorknob. The best type of designs of a doorknob is ones that you don't think about. You just use it, right? You open the door and you're like, done. And so those are basically game elements embedded in a regular process. So for instance, if you go to LinkedIn and you see a progress bar that says you're 80% completing your profile, you're not going to be like, oh, it's making me play a game. I don't want to play a game, right? It's just like, oh, it just kind of pushes you a little bit forward towards the right direction. And all this game elements, we learn it from games because we know it's motivating, but it doesn't have to look like a game, right? It's just human-focused design. Now, another thing is a lot of people ask me about gamification platforms, right? They say, oh, should we use this platform, that platform? And what I believe is that a gamification platform, ones that allow you to input game rules or allows you to do points, badges, leaderboard, Playbase is a really good engine. I really like them. And I'll say that I think these gamification platform to a game is kind of like a graphics engine. Basically, a graphics engine allows you to create a great game, right? It helps you a lot with that. But just because you have a great graphics engine doesn't mean you have a very engaging game. Sometimes you'll see a game with amazing 3D graphics, right? All the amazing pixels, shadow, all that texture, beautiful, but just no one plays it, right? It's not engaging. And then you see games with really crappy graphics, or sometimes even no graphic mud games. You just see text, you type, and you say, oh, what's going on, right? And those are really addicting. So clearly what makes a game addicting is not necessarily the graphics. And so I think it's really useful to pick platforms that allow you to bring your design into the real world. But it doesn't mean once you pick the platform, yay, it's successful. Now, luckily, a lot of these platforms do have designers who can help you design the experience and whatnot. So I really think the fun, which is the content, and the content delivery are equally important. So the graphic engine is almost like how do you deliver that fun, whereas how you design the experience is the fun. Cool. So with that cleared up, I'd like to go back into the 8-core drive. Again, if there's anything you guys learn from me today when you walk away, just think about 8-core drives. When you look at a process, like how does it engage one of my 8-core drives? So the first one, again, is epic meaning and calling, right? And this is, again, the concept that you're doing something because you feel like it's something bigger than yourself. And we talked about how this is why people update Wikipedia. Folded, obviously, something really big. And so there's a few other examples, a lot of them, actually. So one of the examples I really like is something called Pain Squad. So this is a mobile app for children that have cancer in hospitals, right? And so what these children need to do is that in order to diagnose them better, they have to keep a pain journal. So every time there's pain, they have to take out a journal, record it, how much does it hurt, from a scale of 1 to 10, where is it at, all that stuff. And if you can imagine, if you're a child, you have cancer in a hospital, and you already feel not very motivated about life. You feel lonely, you feel no one likes you, no one cares about you, you're just a very sad child in the hospital, right? And when you go through that immense amount of pain, you're not very motivated to take and write a journal. Hey, I was going through this massive pain, right? Another problem is that they have to keep this journal up for a few weeks. If there's one day where this journal the data's not there, the whole data set is ruined. It's not useful at all. So they're trying to figure out how to incorporate a process to get these children to really enter into that pain journal stuff. So they launched an app called Pain Squad, and it's being used right now in Canadian hospitals, and it's getting great results spreading. So what it is when users sign up to an app that pretends that they're part of the secret police unit called the Pain Squad, and what they say is, hey, there's this evil there's evil unit out there called Pain, and you are a special agent for this Pain Squad, and your job is to capture pain, to report it, and let us hunt down pain. So the tagline is, put pain in its place. And so whenever a child goes through pain, they pull out this app, and they have to enter that data. Now, the epic meaning and calling part of it is really making the child understand, like, you're not just a sad little kid in a hospital by yourself. You're part of a bigger unit. You're trying to help this bigger unit hunt things down. And to make this more compelling, what they do is in the video, they show a lot of videos of actual police people who are from famous police TV shows, right? And they're like, congratulations, Chief, we're so happy to have you in the unit. Or hey, with that progress, you're going to become head of our unit soon. Or Chief is so proud of you, right? You see motivating videos of people in the police uniform saying, you're doing an awesome job, we need you, the world needs you, right? And so that really inspires the child. It's like, now I'm doing something important. I'm being part of a unit. I'm being appreciated. It's very important, right? So with that record, with that app, kids become much more like, oh, pain. I feel pain. I have to report it now. I have to hunt it down. And they do it, and so that has showed great results. So that's epic meaning and calling, right? It's not as much on the other core drives. It's basically saying, now I feel there's a sense of importance. There's something bigger than myself, and I want to be part of it. There's a lot of companies that come to me and say, hey, Yukai, we're just like building a tool. We're very functional, right? There's no real meaning. We're not saving the world. We're not changing the planet. We're just a utility tool, right? What can we do? And so one example that I really like in terms of that is Waze. Like we talked about Waze, Robert talked about Waze in an earlier talk. And Waze does a lot of game mechanic and dynamic things that you saw in a screenshot. But one of the most impressive things to me that Waze did is Waze actually implemented epic meaning and calling into the product. So Waze is a GPS app, right? And if you think about GPS, it's very functional, right? You turn left, you turn right, you get your destination. Not a lot of epic meaning, right? It's just, hey, I'm going to my work, I'm going to a place, right? So what they've done, and they don't, to do this epic meaning calling, they don't even need like a big video storyline, all that stuff. What they do is especially in the early days, they might have taken out these days, but the early days, when you sign up to Waze, they show you one picture. On the left side of the picture, there's a huge snake monster. And the snake monster is made out of a road with cars stuck on it. And this monster's name is Traffic. And on the right of the picture, there are little Wazers, like little characters like that, with swords and shields and helmets, all working together to fight that big traffic monster. And below, there's one tagline. It says, beat traffic together, right? So when you are driving with Waze, you're not just trying to get to your destination. You're helping humanity beat this monster called traffic. And obviously no one likes traffic, right? Everyone wants to beat traffic, right? So the reason why it works like that is because Waze is a user-generated GPS. When you drive with Waze, you're constantly collecting data to help everyone else. Like how's the traffic? Where are the police? If there's a trash on the ground, if there's a car stuck, and as you drive more and more, the Waze engine becomes smarter and smarter. So everyone benefits out of that. So, and because it's user-generated, there are also some side effects to it, right? Sometimes it's not very accurate. Waze has taken me to the wrong place about 3 times, and I was late for my meeting for like 10 to 30 minutes. And the interesting thing is this. Usually, a GPS core function, the only functionality is getting you to the right place, right? When it fails in its core functionality, most of the time people say, this is a piece of crap. I'm going to delete it, right? What kind of GPS is this if it takes me to the wrong place? However, because of the epic median calling, a lot of times when it takes people to the wrong place, a user, instead of saying, oh, this is crap, I'm going to delete it, they say, oh no, the map is broken. I need to go fix it, right? How powerful is that? How many times when your product fails in the most basic competency, your users, instead of complaining, instead of yelling, they panic and they want to fix it for you. And that's because of, again, epic median calling, because they have a belief, they have a vision. Everyone's working together to outsmart traffic, right? And when it falls, when there's a crack in it, people's like, oh crap, I don't want anyone else to see a crack in the vision, or else they'll lose faith in it. So I need to go fix it, right? So that's epic meaning. It's not about what you can get out of it. It's not about how much you like. It's really about something bigger than yourself, a core belief. Now, elitism is another core theme in epic meaning and calling. Sometimes you can build that in your brand, like Apple, right? Apple has created an amazing brand where it says, hey, people self-identify as Apple people. It's a bigger vision. So I have friends who come to me and say, hey, Yukai, I want to buy the next iPhone. I'm like, you don't even know what's in the next iPhone. It could suck. And they're like, I don't care, Yukai, I want to buy the next iPhone. I'm like, okay. So what you can see here is they see Apple as a vision, and they self-identify as a person in that vision. So they need to do whatever Apple person needs to do, which is buy MacBooks and buy iPhone. I'm part of that, by the way. And sometimes you'll see them being a little bit snobby about it, right? I don't know if you've seen that with some walkabout. It's like, oh, you have that problem because yo is a PC. I never see it because I use a Mac, right? And which is why this is kind of funny for some people. It's like, well, you think Macs are cool? Can you do this? I don't think so, right? It's a powerful PC function. Yeah, and so people will believe in this vision and do what Apple people should do until they feel like Apple is no longer a vision worth believing. So if Apple screws up something, they do something with privacy, or they basically show you that we're not a vision worth believing. Then at that point people stop being Apple people. And this is why one of the most compelling, most powerful ads by Apple commercials is the 1984 video. Maybe the other one is the Think Differently. Now I don't know how much impact that has for you guys if you guys know about it, but basically there was an ad, 1984 video about how it breaks through the novel 1984 kind of system. So that ad was one. People say that ad is what turned Apple around. Like people thought, oh, Apple's boring, stupid. But now, after seeing that ad, we want to buy Apple. Again, nothing about that commercial is about specs. It's not about, oh, we have this round color screen. It's just because of Apple, 1984 will not be like the novel 1984. It will not be just IBM ruling everything. And IBM is still very powerful, as we can see in this conference. But that was Apple's vision. Cool. So, and I just spent a little bit more time in Core Drive 1 just because it's the most abstract, right? People think about it a lot. Core Drive number 2, development accomplishment, right? We talked about it a little bit in terms of how people need to feel accomplished, leveling up. We talked about Nike Plus, right? The interesting thing about Nike Plus is if you think about the problem set as, hey, running is for my health, right? Health is a long-term thing. You don't see feedback until much, much later, right? So you always know you need to eat healthily, you need to exercise more, but you don't see the effects quickly. So what Nike Plus does is it allows you to see your progress and improvements and feel the growth, feel improvement, right? And it turns long-term benefits into short-term gratification, and that's very, very important. We talked about eBay. And eBay, again, it's not necessarily intuitive to create a competitive bidding site with all these feedback systems and whatnot. I remember when I first sold 10 products about 10 years ago, my first little tiny business, I got this Yellow Star Achievement Award. And it was a PDF, it was signed by the CEO. And I'm like, oh, I was so happy. I printed it out. I put it on my wall. I think it's still with my parents right now. And, after 50, you get your blue star. That I didn't print out. But you just feel a sense of growth and achievement. And like I said earlier, when you buy something on eBay, you didn't just buy something. You feel like you won. You beat people, right? A sense of accomplishment. Twitter. So most people remember Twitter's innovation as, hey, 140 characters. We limit how many characters you can type, which is a form of scarcity and patience, Core Drive 6. But a lot of people forget that another one of Twitter's innovations is the one-way follow. Before Twitter, most social networks are two-way follows, two-way connections, right? I add you as a friend, you accept, and we're both friends, or you decline, we're no friends, right? We're not friends. What Twitter does is, hey, you can follow me, but I don't have to follow you back. So that made people feel like getting followers is more of an accomplishment, right? It's like, hey, if 1 million people follow me and I don't follow any of them, that means I'm super cool, right? And because of that, what we see is we see celebrities like Ashton Kutcher say, hey, I want to beat CNN in reaching the first 1 million followers, right? That was many years ago. And that really helped Twitter, right? It helped, when the celebrities are talking about it, it really helps a technology product get into the mainstream. And, eventually you can see, like, Ashton Kutcher is the first to reach 1 million Twitter followers contest. And he was what? He won by about 348 followers. So a close match. Yeah. So again, the key is that now when you get more followers, obviously in Facebook, if you have more friends, you feel accomplished, right? But it's different when you don't have to be their friends. Empowerment of creativity and feedback. Again, this is the concept like Lego, right? You give people the basic building blocks, and there's an infinite amount of ways for them to use their creativity, solve problems, and figure out and see if they like it, adjust for it, right? And then a lot of these crowdsourcing sites, that kind of deals with the question I got asked for, but is that a lot of these crowdsourcing sites deal with this, right? Kaggle, come together, solve a problem, folder that we talked about. It's when you can try different things, see if you solve it. Oh, I failed, but I know what else to try this time. That process is very engaging. This is also why Minecraft is very popular these days, because it allows you to create your world, right? It's like a digitized Lego world. So you can create anything you want. It's like, hey, I like it, I don't like it, my friends can see it, all that stuff. And then there's simulation training stuff, like games that simulate you running a factory, right? And you're like, now that you have a lot of ways, like, hey, this is your budget, limited resources. You can choose to invest in this. You can choose to fix that, hire this employee. You're making decisions. You're using your creative thought into the process, and so that process is very interesting versus just clicking a button. And then I talked about chess. Chess, obviously, it's very simple, right? 64 squares and 32 pieces, and that's actually more than that. 32 pieces. So people have been playing it for centuries, right? And it's still motivating. It's still fun. Like I'm a chess teacher, by the way, also. And it's just because there's so many variations that you can utilize and see and grow with it. So this is a popular game. It's called StarCraft, and a lot of people talk to me about, hey, Yukai, we want to do this gamification thing, but aren't games really short-lived? Like, doesn't have a very short shelf life. Like, people move on from different games. And the answer is usually yes, right? Most games, people play for about 3 to 8 months, and then they leave, and they move on to the next games. And if you remember my framework well, that's mostly because of the end game, right? They did not design a good end game. At the end game is when someone has done everything there is to do. They've been playing this for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years. Why do they stay? Why do they keep playing this game, right? And most games don't think about that. Most games think about onboarding, how do you teach them the rules, what's the game, how do you do marketing, right? But there are some games out there that have a very long longevity, and StarCraft is one of them. When it was launched in, I think, 1998, it was a great game, and more than 10 years later, in 2012, I think, when StarCraft 2 came out, everyone was still playing StarCraft 1, and it actually became a national sport in Korea. There's 3 TV channels dedicated to show StarCraft contests. There's not only professional StarCraft players, there's also professional full-time StarCraft commentators that just like, oh, his SCV is attacking the unit. How would we go? And two guys just talking like that, right? And the reason, because is the end game, they use empowerment of creative feedback. It's really, like I said, it's evergreen content. A lot of games, if you want to build on other drives, you have to add more stuff. There's a new mission. There's something new, right? But this, because it's just, here are all your building blocks. There's your pieces, units, resources, and it's up to you how you want to create your army, how do you want to attack, different strategies. It's very motivating, engaging. I like to use Farmville a lot in my examples because most people recognize it. And I think, like I think previous talks agreed about, it's not really a fun game. It's not that fun, but it mastered a lot of these core drives. So people really, really get stuck to it. And I think a lot of people play Farmville for bad reasons, but I think this is a kind of good reason to play Farmville, right? Some people, once they have a big farm, they have all the money, they can plant anything they want, some people start to create art with their farms, right? So it's like, hey, how do I create the Mona Lisa with my farm? Hey, Super Mario, hey, look, I'm gonna plant a QR code with my farm. Yeah, that's pretty creative, right? And that's interesting. That's a very engaging process, and it quite requires a lot of thought, right? You're like, okay, on this square, what's the plant I need to plant? Okay, on that square, what's the plant I need to plant? And also, sadly, it's short-lived because if you don't harvest this whole field within 8 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is, it all withers and then it's gone. That's kind of interesting, actually. So also, this empowerment thing also deals with things when you feel like you're more in control. So, car companies that you probably have seen a little bit of this here and there, the newer cars, they all have some kind of feedback system to show you how well you're driving the car, right? Are you being efficient with your fuel? You don't want to brake too fast. You don't want to drive too fast. You don't want to accelerate too fast. So they have these little metric systems, and this gives you this first makes you feel empowered. When you step on the wheel, the thing goes up. If you step on the wheel, if you step on the gas pedal, if you step on the brake, it goes down. So you feel like you're in control. You're empowered, and then you see immediate feedback, right? So with this system, people want to feel empowered to control the situation and see feedback immediately. And as a result, there's a 53% reduction in speeding cars just because they actually see the feedback really quickly and they feel like they're actually in control. Piano staircase. So this is an experiment to say, hey, let's see how can we get people to take the stairs instead of the elevator, right? And so what they did is they turned the staircase, they put some sensors there and turned it into a piano case. So when you walk on the piano or the staircase, it'll make like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, and you can jump around and make different sounds. So what they said is that users will use the stairs more if they feel like they can use their creativity and they create music, right? They jump around like, hey, what if I play this simple song like Mary Had a Little Lamb on the stairs, if that's possible. It's a little dangerous sometimes if they actually do it. But they hear the music. That's feedback. Right? I do something, I get feedback. I do something, I get feedback. Most things in the world that are not gamified, you don't see that as much, which is the challenge. Cool. Core drive number 4 is ownership and possession, and that's the concept of because you feel like you own something, you want to protect it, you want to improve it, and you want to get more. And this is like collecting stamps, right? Hey, I want to collect more stamps. That's always fun. It also deals with a few different things, like Farmville. Like Farmville, part of the drive of building Farmville is like, hey, this is my farm. I'm owning a farm, and you want to get more. You first have 1 cow, and then you want 2 cows, and then 3 cows, and 4 cows, and then you need a house to put the cows in, right? And it gets more and more and more, and then it kind of explodes. Now it just keeps playing, the game. This game is called Geomon. I was advisor for this game company, and they were not so recent anymore, but they were bought by Yahoo, and unfortunately, after a while, this is what big companies do, they shut it down. But they utilize a lot of these cores as well. So what this game is like, this is like a Pokemon game where you capture monsters, but the monsters you capture depend on your actual physical environment. So if your smartphone, if you're next to a river, you can catch river monsters. If you're on the mountain, you can catch mountain monsters. And because people wanted to capture these monsters, kids, they would go to the beach to capture the dolphin monster. They would go all these different places. And and we'll go back to this. There's actually a lot of interesting examples in this. And then there's the avatar stuff, right? Allowing you to customize your avatar. It's like, this is my identity, right? That brings more engagement. Once you spend all that time and energy creating that type of involvement, engagement, usually people are less likely to quit, right? Because it's either, hey, look, it looks exactly like me, right? Or, hey, it looks exactly like my alter ego, like who I wish I was. So that's the ownership position core drive. We mentioned a little bit of McDonald's Monopoly game. It has a few different core drives in it, but an ownership possession, right? We talk about a game technique called collection set. A collection set is basically something that a reward that shows up only after you get all the components. So how you play this game is you buy burgers, and then you can get some of these properties in the McDonald's or Monopoly world. And if you collect all the different properties, right, then you can get a huge bonus. So and usually if you play these type of games, you will know that there's usually like 1, 2, or 3 components that are very scarce. Like you just can't find them. There's probably like just 2 pieces in the world. And so those pieces become so rare that people want to finish the collection. So they would spend real money to buy a piece, a component, a property here, which is really crazy if you think about it, because they're not even spending real money to buy the reward. They're spending money to buy a piece of the reward, right? But that has value because people want to complete the set. Remember we talked about Geomon? So Geomon has this thing called the 4-season deers. And you got the winter snow deer, summer fire deer, etc. And the key thing here is you can actually capture that particular deer in that season, right? So 3 months of the year you can capture this deer and then this deer, and then during that season it's very frequent. You can find a lot of those. So when you have 2 or 3 of the 4-season deer, it actually feels kind of awkward. Like, hey, I have 2 or 3 of the season. You automatically want to capture, you complete the set, get all of them, right? And the problem here is that 36 months, 3 to 6 months. So sometimes but if you want to get the other ones, you have to wait for 3 months, for 6 months, right? So at that point in the game, people go crazy about trading. It's like, hey, who has the summer deer? I want the summer deer. I want the summer deer, because they don't want to wait 6 months. And so people, again, are willing to pay real money to get that. Again, it's not even a more powerful monster. And it's very frequent during the right season. It's just, they want to complete the set. Social influence and relatedness. So this is about, what other people think and feel and do and how it influences you, right? So LinkedIn. Right, LinkedIn has a lot of good gamification examples. I think it's one of the earlier companies who maybe they don't think about it in terms of how it's gamification, but they do think about how it motivates behavior, right? In LinkedIn, you'll see different things like, say, hey, 47 people have viewed your profile in the past week. You're like, oh, really? That makes me feel special. That's like social proof for me. And you click on them and say, who sees it? Like, are those people that I care about, or are my friends? Does my ex-girlfriend think I'm cool now because I'm so accomplished compared to 10 years ago? That guy holds on to a relationship too long. 10 years, maybe 2-3 years ago, right? Yeah. So, and that's not me, by the way. And then, there's different things about how to make listening to music more social, right? So there's a site called plug.dj. I'm kind of like advisor for them too. And they're like, okay, listening to music is fun. And people like to do that, but how do you make it more social? So, and there's a similar company, turntable.fm also, but that hasn't been doing as well, I think. But they said, okay, well, why not we create a virtual room where anyone can go up and be a DJ so they can play the music they own. And, so everyone goes up, and then people just join, and they can click, I like this music. And if they click they like it, they start dancing, right? So you as a DJ, it's like, wow, everyone likes my music, everyone's dancing. Or if everyone clicks down, then everyone's just like standing there doing nothing, and then the DJ swaps around. So it's like, hey, I'm sharing my music with people. Sometimes and I've seen like companies where this entire office, they just have one channel, one room, and everyone takes turns being the DJ, and everyone just listens to the company channel. Yep. We talk about, in games, we have something called the group quest. And, the Game Technique 22, I have a list of about 100 game techniques that I kind of populate throughout the web. It's like a game I play with my readers too. But yeah, group quest, right? Group quest has been in games for a long time. Things that you can only accomplish if you have a bunch of people. You can never accomplish it by yourself. And, World of Warcraft, there's stages where no matter how high level you are, you can't beat it. You have to have 40 other players who are max level working together, then you have a chance of beating it. And this has been in the industry for a long time in games, but more recently, it's been adopted to business and industry, right? So that's when Groupon comes and says, hey, Groupon is the way, and Groupon, at least the older model is that, hey, there's an amazing deal, but you can't get the deal. You have to get only after 100 people participate and they want to be part of this deal, then they can get it. Same with Kickstarter, right? So these are group quests, and this gets people to say, hey, use this, come in and sign up for this, right? Because you're trying to benefit yourself too, and you build some camaraderie. Another really interesting theme is mentorship. So this is the game called Parallel Kingdoms. There's a pretty small company, but they're doing really well. They make millions of dollars. And as you can see, the graphics aren't that great. There's little heads bopping around, killing monsters, whatever it is. It's just pretty crappy graphics, which, again, reiterates that games aren't fun because it has amazing graphics. So One day I decided to check this out to see why it's successful. And I planned, like, hey, maybe I'll spend like 2 hours on this game to just understand the game dynamics, mechanics that they use. So 10 minutes into the game, or maybe like 30, 40 minutes, I guess, long enough until they realize I'm a serious gamer, I get a message that says, so-and-so user has been assigned to be your mentor. He will message you when he logs in. I'm like, okay, sure. Like, I don't know if this is an admin or whatever it is, right? So after another 10 minutes, the so-and-so user comes up, and he messages me, and he shows up, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then he starts giving me some items. I'm like, wow, that's cool, right? Because I'm a level 1, level 2 character. Like, all my stuff is like crappy. I'm like, I don't have shoes on. I barely have clothes on. I do, but it's just a crappy gear. And he's like, here's a helmet, here's a shield. Like, wow, this is so cool. I couldn't get these things by myself, so I feel really happy, right? But I'm like, oh, crap, he just gave me all this stuff, right? Of course I can't quit. If I just quit, he'll feel like all this stuff was wasted, right? He'll be so disappointed. So I'm like, okay, I guess I won't quit right now. I'll play with him a little bit, see what happens. And so I start playing with him. And so he starts to take me through some dungeons, low-level dungeons, and kill monsters, help me level up. And I was low level, so I was like trying to hit these monsters, like, oh, and I can't do it because I'm so low level, and he just like kills everything with one hit. I'm like, wow, I want to be like that one day. And this is really interesting about human psychology. Even though I didn't really care about the game at that point, when you see someone do something that you couldn't do really easily, you automatically feel, hey, I wish I could be like that, So, and then he spent an hour just helping me go through these dungeons, and then I thought, wow, this guy's a high-level character. He gets nothing by killing monsters in low-level dungeons, right? It doesn't help him at all. He just gets low-level gear and all that stuff. So he is investing so much in me that, of course, I can't quit right now. I'd be the biggest disappointment in the world. And so because of that, I stayed on, and I played the game for much longer than I should. Remember, I just planned to stay on for about 2 hours. I stayed on, I helped him out, I joined his kingdom, did all this questing stuff with him and his kingdom, and let's say instead of 2 hours, I played the game for about 2 or 3 months. So the lesson here is, because I was assigned the mentor, I engaged. I felt like there's some social pressure, social influence. I shouldn't quit. I have to be part of it, and that sometimes a very powerful force in any environment, product or a company environment. Social standing, right? So there's some examples about how to increase call centers and whatnot, and I deal with a lot of companies like that. So this company that says, hey, how do we deal with, how do we increase our calls? How do we increase how many calls a salesperson can do and how many deals they can close? So they used LiveOps used the gamified platform, and they added a simple reputation system, and it shows your stats, right? It shows your conversion rate, how many calls you make, your average order value, and things like it. So when you make that information public, your stats are revealed, right? It's not necessarily even a leaderboard there. It's just your stats are revealed. People feel like, oh crap, I don't want other people to see me as being the loser, as the person who's a slacker, right? And so they start working harder, and what we see there is that there's a 15% call time that was reduced. And you have to be very careful because your metric, if it's just that, then you'll get a ton of short calls, and they're all crappy calls. So you have to make sure you define your metrics correctly, which is something we're going to jump into soon. There's 8 to 12% increase in sales. Very important. Core drive 6, scarcity and impatience. And again, this is the concept that you want something just because you can't get it. One example that I really like is Woot.com. Woot.com is another example of a really well-executed gamification e-commerce site, even though, again, most people don't think about it that way. So Woot.com utilized 2 core drive really, really well. One is scarcity and patience. The other one is core drive 7, unpredictability and curiosity. Right? So what it is every day you go on the site, you'll find one amazing product at a very big discount. And this was before all that daily deal thing happened. But so the problem is, especially in the early days, when you log in to Woot.com at 4 p.m., you see, oh, cool product, oh, it's sold out. And then you log in at 11 a.m., oh, cool product, oh, it's sold out. So that you're just like, I can't buy anything, and that makes you really want to be able to buy something. So what that trains people to do is that eventually a lot of people log in at 11:59 p.m. every day, and they refresh the page, so that when midnight strikes, suddenly, boom, the last product's on, the new product's up, and they're like, oh, I can buy it, so they buy it. Right? And that's unpredictable. You never know what the next day's product is. And so by 4 a.m., it's all sold out again. Right? So that's the thing where, because you couldn't buy, you now want to really do it. Let's go back to Geomon. I do like a lot of their interesting things. Actually, I have a new game these days that I might replace Geomon with. But so in Geomon, there's a some monsters that are really scary. So we talked about the four-seasoned deers, but there's this one that's called the mozzie. It's a fox made of fire. It's called the mozzie, and you can only capture a mozzie if you're next to a Mozilla Firefox headquarters, which means that very, very few people in the world can actually own one. And so it was so rare that everyone wanted a mozzie, and I was lucky. I lived in Mountain View, California, so I captured a lot of mozzies. But you can see how obsessed people are with mozzies because they just couldn't get it. This is a screenshot I took in the chat board. There's a Vincent7512 says, I wish I had a single mozzie. Then, at this point in my life, I could die happy. You know, it's just like, dude, this guy's so sad, right? And you'd think that on a forum like this, people would say, dude, get a life. It's just a game, right? Cheer up, right? But the third line, and guys, I don't know why you sit back there. I was sat back there, and I can't see anything on the screen, not even the big text, right? You guys should be here. Anyway, so in the third line, Valerie Fox 18 says, me too, Vincent, me too, sad face, right? So you can see how that culture that's built, it's everyone just wants a mozzie. And there's another very scarce monster called the Lorelix, the fire phoenix. What happened here? My bad, let me... It's a call or an email from a mom that says, my child is sick, he's been sick for 2 weeks, and he says that nothing will cheer him up unless he has a Lorelix. Now, I don't know what it is, but he says, you guys have it. I'm willing to pay $20 for you to give him this Lorelix, right? Again, Lorelix is not even the most powerful monster in the game. It's just because it's so rare, people just want it. And what's really interesting about me is that, okay, I've done my research, I played the game, all good, I deleted it, I no longer played it. And I stopped playing it for about 8 months, maybe 6, 8 months. And one day, I was traveling, and I got into a place that was really, really hot. And it's so weird because when I got there, the first thing that went to my mind is, I wonder if I can capture a Lorelix here. You know, this is 8 months later. I have not touched and thought about the game for 8 months. And this is so odd because, again, I didn't care about the game. I didn't care about my social stat, anything. But I just thought, hey, it's so hard to capture a Lorelix. Maybe I should when I can capture one, right? That's the only thing. I think the reason why I should is because it's so hard and other people couldn't get it. So that's scarcity and patience. Unpredictable and curiosity. So again, this is what things that engage you when you can't really predict what happens. And we talked about gambling. Games like Diablo, they have Diablo 2 had a very long longevity too. People played it for over 10 years. And it's odd because the game is an RPG game. You have a character, you go through all the maps, you kill the boss, and you're done. And you do the same thing over and over again. And usually you kill the last boss, Diablo, within 3 months of play. So what are you doing for the next 9 years, right? People literally just go back and play the game over and over and over and over. And the reason is because, a lot of the reasons, one of the reasons is every time, they have an algorithm where every time you play this map, it changes, it randomly assigns different things. So you're always trying to say, oh, where's the door now? Where's the monster now? Obviously, there's also the loot system, where whenever you kill a monster, some maybe good stuff will come out. So you're also collecting, you're improving your gear. So it's like a casino, right? Every time you kill Diablo, there's a small chance that something great will come out. And you just want to do it over and over and over again until you get what you want. Microsoft has the Clippy Adventure, where they're a mythical game where they're training people to learn all the functions of Microsoft. So you're like going back into time, you're going to ancient Egypt, and you have problems to solve. And the way to solve the problem is like, hey, turn your Microsoft Word from vertical view to horizontal view. Yay, you solved the problem. So it's like kind of like oh, that's kind of dumb. But it does engage people. You're like, oh, instead of just learning about features, now I'm in this little context environment. I always want to know what's going to happen next. Clippy says cute little fun things, and so that's engaging for some people. Super Bowl. I don't know how many of you guys know here, but Super Bowl is the championship match for American football, which is the sport they use their hands to play with. And I'm not talking about the game of itself, but I'm talking about the Super Bowl commercials. And this is a big frenzy on the web, so maybe you guys will be more familiar about it. The Super Bowl commercials have built an amazing reputation. Everyone's curious, who's going to be on the Super Bowl commercials? What would the commercials be, right? And so it's so big that even people who don't watch football turn on the TV just so they can watch Super Bowl commercials. And this is amazing because if you think about it, usually when you see commercials, most people turn their channels away from the commercials, right? In this case, because they build that unpredictability, that curiosity into the process, people tune their channels to the commercials, which means that, hey, their commercials, they can sell it for more money. It's a good deal. There's more eyeballs and all that stuff. Another thing about this core drive are things that you don't really expect. just things that are surprising, and maybe sometimes you see, but you never thought about the way. So if I ask you, like, hey, what's wrong with this picture? You might say, oh, Donald Duck is not wearing any pants, right? So therefore, he's covering his privates, right? It's reasonable, right? And then I said, well, what about you? Have you seen this picture? And you're like, oh, yeah, of course. I've seen this picture a million times, just Donald Duck being happy. And you're like, wait a second, something's weird here. Donald Duck never wears pants. So when he doesn't have a shirt on, why does he cover his bottom? That just doesn't even make any sense, right? So just things like that. You're just like, oh, I never thought about that. That's kind of funny, right? And it changes your mind. And another example here is based on this little comic. Like, take 10 seconds, try to figure out what this comic is saying. Give you some time. I can hear it when people get it. Anyone have a clue? Cool. All right. So when I go through this, most people feel like, hey, it's kind of confusing, right? What's going on? It's like, oh yeah, there's a little boy playing with his ducky toy, and then oh yeah, there's a little fly or mosquito, whatever, lands on the boy's head. And it's like, what? Wait, what happened? Like the little boy turned into an alien? What's going on, right? And they're like, what? This gigantic duck. There's another alien. What is that? And then it's like, why is the alien duck like making out with the little squished up alien? And then, everything's back to normal. And then, so what just happened? Right? And so it could be confusing for some people, and until the key to understanding this is that the boy is the toy. So in reality, in this picture, the little ducky is the child, and the boy is the balloon toy. And the little ducky is just enjoying his toy, just hanging around, and then suddenly this mosquito goes onto the little balloon toy and punctures a hole. So the balloon toy's like, "Bzzz," and the little ducky's like, oh, Daddy, my toy's broken. And Daddy shows up. He's like, all right, let me help fix it. All right, it's done. And then he leaves. And then the little ducky's happy again, right? And again, this is just so different from what you expect. Usually you expect the boy to be the child and the duck to be the toy. In this case, the boy is the toy, and it's just very different from what you expect. And that's when your mind gets a little more engaged. Loss and avoidance. Again, this is about you're doing something because you want to avoid a loss. And Farmville, again, trains people in loss and avoidance, right? When you don't come back and harvest your crop in time, they show you very uninspiring graphics of your crop all dying, all yellowed out, and you actually have to click each of them to like clean it up, and it's just so depressing. So it trains you to like, I don't want this experience again. That's why I'm going to come back in time and make sure I harvest my crops before it dies. And so because of that, like my mom, who doesn't even check email that much, she doesn't like technology and all that stuff, she was addicted to Farmville, and there's a few times where she had to wake up 5 a.m. in the morning just so she can harvest her crops because they won't die. And she would like, if she's traveling, she has to call my cousin and say, hey, I'm traveling, I don't have I can't go online, and can you go harvest my crop for me? Right? Which is really weird because you think games are escapism, right? You have too many responsibilities in the real world, so you go to games to relax, right? And now there's a new set of responsibilities, like kind of crazy, right? Loss and avoidance also deals with, like I said, coupon codes expiring, right? So sometimes when you get a coupon and it says Subway 10% off, expires March 19th. Sometimes you know as a fact that even if this one expires, next month you'll get the exact same coupon the next month that expires March 19th or April 19th. Right? But it just feels like, hey, I feel like I'm losing something if I don't use it right now, right? And same with stuff like poker or investments. It's just like, we talked about sunk costs, right? Sometimes you play poker, you know as a fact, you're almost sure that the other person has a bigger hand than you, or you're beaten. But you're like, oh, I have so much money on the table, I don't want to lose that money, right? And so what you do is do something irrational. You put all your money into the table, so you don't lose that little money you have there, and then it turns out that, of course, he has a bigger hand than you, and you lose all your money. So one of the most, I think, treacherous things in loss and avoidance is what I call the sunk cost tragedy. And this is the time when sometimes you'll be playing a game, and it's no longer fun anymore. It's just same grind over and over and over, sometimes like Farmville, but you just can't quit it. Right? You just keep playing. You're just trained to keep doing it. And part of the reason why you can't quit it is because of the sunk cost tragedy, which is if you quit it, you will have to face and feel a sense of loss. That loss of, I put hundreds or thousands of hours into this game, and if I quit it, all that game is wasted. All that time is wasted. Part of my life just disappeared. It was for nothing, right? And so So when you can choose to feel that loss, or you can take all your money, all your gear, and all that stuff, and go in and be like, "Yay, awesome! I can grow more stuff. I can get more money and more gold, right?" And so it builds more, and eventually builds more sunk costs and more, and it gets even harder and harder to quit. And so and you get stuck into that vicious cycle, and it's just like so depressing. It's just like, how do I get out of this? And usually the way to get out of it is to think big enough. If you think like, hey, when I'm 70 years old, I'm not going to be playing this game, so why should I play when I'm 40? If I'm not, why play it next year, right? And why play it now? If you think big enough, then you realize you're actually losing more, loss and avoidance. You're losing more by playing this game than you give up. And that sometimes help you leave that system. Another one is loss and avoidance zombies run. So we talked about Nike Fuel Plus or Nike Plus that helps you run based on development accomplishment. This is a running app called Zombies Run, where when you run, you put on earphones, and it pretends that you're in this apocalyptic world where zombies take over the world. And you're one of the members of this little town called Abletown. And every once in a while, you have to go out and collect resources for Abletown. And so you run with your earphones on, and there's a radio station that says, "Hey, Runner 5, careful, there's zombies to the south. You better careful, they're gaining up on you." And you hear that sound like, "Oh, zombies closing on." And you're like, "Okay, gotta run faster, or else the zombies are gonna catch up to me," right? And so this motivates people to run. Obviously, there's a storyline, so unpredictability. There's the I'm helping my village. That's epic meaning calling. There's I'm improving my town, right? You can collect resources, and your town gets bigger and it gets nicer. Ownership and possession. Cool. So one of the big things we want to do here is apply the knowledge, right? Apply what we learned here, and so we don't just want to learn stuff and not use it. So it's like this bird, right? It's like the bird's like, I think I've learned something before that I should be using right now, but I forgot what it is. Like, duh, you should fly right now, bird, right? So when I work with my clients, I always start off having them define 5 things, right? It's not just beep, 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 games, all that stuff, right? And those 5 things, I'll go through in detail. So the first one is the business metrics. What do you want to improve? So I have companies coming to me and say, "Hey, Yukai, we want to do gamification. What platform should we use?" And I'm like, well, it depends on what problem you want to solve, right? Because your problem is not that you don't have gamification. If that's your problem, then it doesn't matter what platform you use. Use any platform and you solve your problem. You have gamification now, yay, right? So in reality, you want to really identify what is the end result you want to improve. Whether it's revenue, users, whatnot. I have a client who runs a nonprofit Christian audio tape or videotape company, and they're saying our business metric is getting people closer, more involved into the Bible. Right? It's like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Never heard that before. I'm a Christian too, so that made sense to me. And it should be in an order of importance, and this helps with decision making, right? When you obviously you want every metric out there, right? But when it comes down to design decisions, it's like, do I want A at the cost of B, or I want B at the cost of A? If this is laid out, it helps you a lot. What is my most important metric? And it needs to be quantifiable. You need to be able to benchmark it, track success. It can't just be something fuzzy, like, hey, users are happier. It has to be something you can track, you can measure success on. And this leads to what we call the game objective. So what we have right there is we have the business metrics. We're like, okay, how do we improve our business metrics? The second step is to define your users. A lot of times, a lot of companies do this already. The first step is, hey, let's figure out the demographics, age, whatnot, male, female. But you really want to understand what motivates them. Why are they doing what they're doing right now? And this is where usually, where you think about the 8 core drives again, right? What among the 8 core drives, and it usually has not failed me yet. Everything people do, one of the 8 core drives or more. What among these 8 core drives is motivating to do what they're doing right now? Another thing we kind of broached upon earlier is what are the anti-core drives? So these are the reasons why they don't want to do the desired actions, right? I don't like, hey, why does the client not want to use my product, right? It's so amazing. Loss and avoidance. They say, well, I don't get anything if it works out, but if it sucks, I lose my job. So the reason they don't want to use is loss and avoidance. Or some people say, well, no, my religion says I can't do it, right? Epic meaning and calling is the anti-core drive. So you want to identify those. You want to understand why they're doing what they're doing right now and why are they not doing what you're doing, what you want them to do. So now you have the business metric, you have your players. And the question is, how do you get your players to help you increase your business metrics? Which is the way you define the third thing, which is the desired actions. These are all the little actions you want the users to do. Click on a button, fill out this form, register, whatever it is, show up, work on time. And this is by chronological order. It's first this step, then that step, this step. And no action is too trivial. Some people say, well, this is just signing up a form. It's not that bad, right? And the problem is when you don't think of one of these desired actions and you don't think about 8 core drives in it, that's sometimes where there's no more motivated. Users drop users drop out. And that's when users say, oh, well, let me check my email. Let me go to YouTube, right? You want to constantly think at every single desired action step, what is the 8-core drive that can push people forward? And this leads to the win state in the user's mind. So users must always think when they can get to the win state by committing the desired action, and it helps your business metrics. So those three things should always be aligned, which is intuitive, but you'd be surprised how many times you don't see that. The next thing we look at is user stats. And those are things like what users use to keep track of their progress towards the win state. So these are things where we call the points, level, stages, trophy, avatars, anything that users can see, oh, I'm getting closer to the win state. Oh, I've finished 5 stages. I've learned these 3 skills, right? It can't be a vacuum. You have your business metrics, revenue, user activity on site. Users don't care about that. Users have, badges, levels. The company doesn't really care about that. Like how many, like the average level of my users, I don't care. Like depends on what it is, but I don't care. Like I give them a badge. That doesn't help my metric, right? But users care about that. And that should really also reemphasize on the core drives, right? Because, if it's a badge, it should really make people feel accomplished. And a lot of different types of metrics show different type of meaning, and you want to show like different empowerment, creativity, feedback, right? The result of their creativity. That's a user stat too. That's something they can see and they feel. It's like, oh, I've customized something to 90% or whatnot. So now, user commits the desired action, and they track the feedback page, because that's another department. We don't want to step on their toes, right? So you want to define that. And there's different ways to think about incentives, right? There's different type of rewards. There's the 8-core drives, all of those. Motivation, those are rewards too. Incentives also, or you can think about SAPs, which I'll go into a little bit. And once you define what users want, you don't want to give it to them at the beginning, right? But now you can strategically place them in different win states. So one quick one that a lot of people like to think about is SAPs by Gabe Zuckerman. Status, access, power, stuff. How can we give them more status? How can we give them access? Do these desired actions, and we'll give you these things. There's a few different reward types too. There's the fixed action rewards, earn lunch, random rewards, sudden rewards. So different types of reward structure, and these all incorporate different types of core drives, right? Random rewards, mystery box. That's definitely unpredictable curiosity. Social treasure are things that only your friend can give, you can get by yourself. Obviously social influence relatedness. And so you want to place those incentives embedded into the win state. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is go through a quick example video and then show how you can use the 8-core drive to really come up with something similar. So I'm going to show what we call the SpeedCam lottery. And this is somewhat famous in the gamification world, but not as famous in terms of how gamification, let's see, how do we get the sound to be working here? All right. Oops. Can we get the sound to work? I think I have it plugged in right. Hello? All right, good.
Hi, I'm Kevin Richardson. I'm the winner of Volkswagen's Fun Theory Award. My idea was the speed camera lottery. Could we get people to evade the speed limit through fun? I really believe that fun can change human behavior for the better, and I was really thrilled to see that my idea, which started as a scribble submitted into this competition, might even become reality. The speed camera lottery would do two things. One, it would photograph speeders, give them a citation, and that money goes in a pot. But if you're obeying the law, your picture will also get snapped. You'll be entered into a lottery and win some of that money from those speeders. Jag kör alltid lagligt, men tveksamt om jag vinner.
Det är en bra positiv grej det där. Kör lagligt och tjäna deg, det är perfekt.
say, hey, look, that's dangerous driver. Hey, I'm cool. To a dangerous driver. And so a lot of people speed too. So then the government comes in, they ask loss and avoidance into the process. Right? If you speed, you get a fine, which again, bottom line is a lot less people are speeding. But as you know, still people speed all the time. And then so there's another solution with empowerment of creativity and feedback. I don't know if you guys have seen, I'm not sure in India, where there's a banner on the side that shows you how fast you went. And it doesn't really give you a ticket. It just shows you 35, 24. And it allows you to feel like, hey, I'm playing this game. I see my score. Empowerment of creativity and feedback, right? And so that works somewhat. And so now we're thinking about how do we bring it to the next level? How do we come up with a solution like the Speed Cam Lottery? So what they did is they add a few core drives. First of all, they add ownership and possession. Whenever you can win money, right, that's ownership and possession. I want to get more of the stuff, right? So as you can see, that older guy is like, oh, driving and winning money, that's perfect, right? So that core drive motivates him. Then we talked about whenever there's a lottery system, there's unpredictability and curiosity, right? Maybe because you could win, so that motivates the people. Then we add development accomplishment. As you notice when you drive through, there's thumbs up, you pass, or thumbs down, you failed. So it shows like, yes, I got to the win state, right? Very, very clear. Then finally, a lot of people miss this. There's social pressure, social influence. Because it's on a busy street, everyone can see your result. Are you thumbs up or thumbs down? And no one wants to look like a loser. No one likes to say, oh, look, people know that I'm disobeying the law. So because of you add these core drives into the process, you can potentially use Octalysis to come up with a creative solution like the Speed Cam Lottery. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff in Octalysis. There's some next workshops, me, Mario, books coming out next year. This is us again, Game EDC. We work with big companies. And thank you. And I don't know if we have time for questions or not. All right, time up. Thank you. Email me if you have questions. I'm usually decent at answering. So we're going to start. We're already like 5 minutes after, but hopefully you guys had a good meal. I guess since this is the third time today I'm making sushi, let me just quickly ask, who has not seen me talk to this? Who's new? No one? Everyone has seen me say something at least? Okay, so I'm not going to spend time. The only reason I ask this is I'm not going to spend too much time on my background and bio, right? So I'm the same guy, Yukai Chow. My name hasn't changed. I have the same credentials. That hasn't. Oh, now I've done 2 talks for this conference, added credentials. But yeah, so we're going to talk today about the topic of lifestyle gamification. And basically, it's how do you turn your life into a game so everything is fun and exciting. So I want to first start off just telling you about my life. I'd say I'm pretty happy about my life. So first of all, part of my life is I travel the world on someone else's dime. So I get flown everywhere. I go to speak at Denmark, China, Germany, and all the different places, right? And someone else pays for my trip all around, right? And I get paid as much as I pay my lawyer. So it's like, this is pretty good. I mean, a lot of you guys are super wealthy, way more beyond that, but I'm happy with that. And what's cool about my job is I just talk about games, right? I don't have to go through boring legal documents. And I play games as part of my work. I say, oh, I need to work hard today, 8 hours. All right, let's go to World of Warcraft or something, right? And I don't ever do outbound sales. My website does pretty well. My brand is pretty well. All I do to get business is to say yes or no to people who reach out to me, right? So, and I pretty much look forward to every day of my work. When I wake up, I'm like, yes, today is another day. I can play a new game. Not necessarily just a game on my phone, right? Just the new day is a new day of challenges, of creativity, and so every day is like a game for me. So when I wake up, I'm excited. I like to live every day of my life. So who wants that, right? Who wants that kind of lifestyle? Right, it's kind of nice, right? But obviously, it's not all chocolate and sugar and amazing, right? There's some bad things about my life, some troubles. For instance, I'm married, right? No, I'm just joking. I have a great family, love my wife, but she doesn't like me doing research on games that much, and she doesn't like me traveling that much. But overall, really happy, right? So this talk is more about exploring, what I did. It started from an epiphany 10 years ago, and what I did to eventually design my life to get to a point where I really look forward to it every day. And I'm not saying my life's the best life, but it's life I enjoy. I really like it. And so you can design it to whatever you want it to be. So I want to start off my story. How did I get here, and how does that lead to, how can it help you if you learn something from it? So from 1990 to 2003, I was a very heavy gamer. I was a child, I was a kid. I don't know if you can tell how old I am, but I was playing games. And by the way, I wasn't born 1990 because I wasn't born playing a game. But like most kids these days and kids in the past, I spent a lot of hours playing games all day. And this is a funny picture. This is like this video of the World of Warcraft, which is a guy playing a game, which is another guy playing World of Warcraft. So he presses up, and the guy presses up. This is like the Onion kind of news. But I was playing a lot of games, and I spent, thousands of hours playing games, literally. And I was a hardcore gamer. I would spend a lot of energy and resources just figuring out what the new strategy, reading strategy guides. I'd be sitting in the toilet just thinking about it and all that stuff, right? I talked about waking up 3 a.m. in the morning behind my parents' back and trying to level up, all that stuff. And then in 2003, I had an epiphany meaning like a revelation, right? And who recognizes this figure? Anyone? Okay, so some people do, some people don't, right? So I had an epiphany, and then afterwards, that changed my life. So in 2003 to 2005, I was what I call lifestyle gamer, right? Which means I saw myself, and I go back to the epiphany. I know that's the thing that's curious about it. But then I saw myself as living my life as a game. Like everything I do, I see it from a gamer's point of view, and I'm trying to master it. I try to do everything seriously. And before 2003, as a student, I didn't really care about school. I just wanted to read comics, play games. After this point, everything I did to my standards very, very well. And I got all A's. I did everything well: swimming, orchestra, violin, acupuncture, even all that stuff, right? And I got into a good college and all that stuff. And so in 2005, I became an entrepreneur in gamification. So I started 3 companies: Future Delivery, Reward Me, Virology, and those are all pretty much has a lot of game content. The Future Delivery was a company that utilized a game to help comes to recruit talent more efficiently. It allows, and this at its time is very popular. It was rated as one of the top 10 social networks for Gen Ys, with a partnership with Disney and all that stuff. Virology was my next one. It was a social media rank, putting pretty much a leaderboard, scoreboard of how influential everyone is on the internet. We had hundreds of thousands of bloggers excited about it, embedding our code, and just really leveling up in that. And then later on, I decided I wanted to break gamification into the offline world, which I started Reward Me, which brings gamification into shopping, buying at restaurants. And as a CEO, I raised about a little over $1 million for the company, and the product was literally 10 times better. So in 2013 or 12, for one reason, I stepped down as CEO of Reward Me, and I became and that allowed me to focus completely on what I'm passionate about, which is gamification, right? Because as a startup CEO, you want to do product, but you usually don't work on product. As a startup CEO, what you do is you're always dealing with potential investors, current investors, who's buying lunch, who's the janitor, and it's usually just you because the engineers need to do the work, designers to do the work, so you're like, okay, I'll be the janitor. And you don't have money to hire janitors, right? So 2012, I fully committed to doing gamification, and that's when I published my framework Octalysis, and you guys should know this hopefully a little bit by now. And it was really picked up. It was translated to about 12 different languages, and I started getting a lot of inbound requests to speak about it, consulting. Now, I see a lot of conferences in Russia and whatnot that's teaching gamification. I'm like, hey, that's my thing, but it's all Russian. I don't understand it, right? And so that's what I've been doing, and that has been treating me very, very well. So I want to talk about the epiphany that I had in 2003. So during that time, I was playing this game that looks kind of like intimidating, but it's this game called Diablo 2. And I was, again, a hardcore player, so I would spend thousands and thousands of hours playing this game, mastering it, playing with my friends. But then it came to a point where my friends, decided, like a lot of games, they started quitting the game and move on to a new game. So I quit too. So I was in this transitional period between quitting a game and starting a new game. And I felt extremely empty. The guy was in the last talk, you talked about the sunk cost tragedy, right? I just felt really empty. I was thinking, man, I spent literally thousands of hours, like not even exaggerate, thousands upon thousands of hours getting more money in the game, getting more gear, leveling up, learning more skills, building my character, and then now I have nothing. It's just like my account will be deleted after like a year of inactivity, and it's just like a part of my life just kind of disappeared. And so that emptiness kind of took over me, and then so I was thinking about, so what game can I play that everyone is playing, and they can't just quit, move on to a new game, because when they quit a new game, then everything I've done in this game is wasted, right? So what is that game out there, right? What game has everyone in it? And so then I kind of figured, right, hey, it's kind of like the game of life, right? So if I was my own gaming character, right, I would not just be in town. Let's say it's an RPG like Diablo, right? Diablo is you start in town, you go out and kill monsters. So I was thinking, if I was my own RPG character, I'm not going to stay in town and just walk back and forth, be idle and do nothing. Of course not, right? I'm going to go out, kill monsters, get experience, learn skills, find allies, conquer quests. And so I'm like, but I'm kind of like that in my real life. I'm just idle. It's like I'm just sitting there on a computer, right? If my character was sitting there doing nothing, I'd be so mad at my character, right? So then at that point, I became very obsessed with two things. One is, how do you make games more productive? The second is, how do you make life more fun, right? I was thinking, hey, those thousands of hours wasted, wouldn't it be amazing if I didn't spend 1,000 hours playing Diablo, but I spent 1,000 hours learning a new language, right, or playing the violin? I would be high level in real life, not just in the game, right? So then I became really obsessed with this. So then I started really looking into this issue and thinking about it. And then I noticed that, hey, there's a problem in society. The problem here is that even in very wealthy countries, right, it doesn't matter almost where it is, like most young people do not know what they actually want to do when they grow up, when they go in the job career, and which almost leads to the result that most old people really dislike their jobs. Right? A lot of people, when I talk to them, it's just like they don't want to go to work. They spend 5 days, 6 days working so they can spend 1 or 2 days on the weekend doing whatever they want to do. Sometimes it's games, sometimes just doing nothing or watching TV. Right? And I just felt like that just didn't make any sense. Right? Why can't you make your life more engaging, more interesting in driving that? So what I saw is that, hey, a lot of people live their lives like an NPC, called a non-playable character. So if you've played these type of games, and I know the example I share is a little bit biased because I'm showing all these hardcore fighting kind of games. So some demographics here, perhaps some female gamers, you don't see these games as much. So just let me know if you want me to explain something. But these NPCs are usually characters where they're just computer characters. They're not controlled by people. They stand in town, and when you talk to them, they always tell you the exact same thing. It's like, hey, what are you doing here? You should go there. Oh, what are you doing here? They have one specific role. And the few things about an NPC, they're very reliable, right? You can always expect them to be exactly where they are when you need them. It's just you go out on a venture 10, 20 hours or a year, 2 years. You come back, they're still standing there. They still have the exact same things to tell you, right? And they usually have one specific function, right? There's the guy who says, oh, well, here's you can buy weapons from me. Oh, you can buy potions from me. Or here, I can heal you, right? And I realized that most people in society are NPCs. They have one function. They don't really go anywhere, and they just do whatever's in that momentum. Right? Whatever they've been doing, they just keep doing. And you can tell when you're meeting an NPC, when after like a few years, you meet them and say, hey, so what's new? And they're like, oh, same old, just still doing my same thing, And you ask them, so what's your plan? What are goals, right? And they're like, oh, just I don't know. I haven't thought about that, right? That's when you know you meet an NPC. And when you talk about like the main character in a game or a movie, right? There's always different characteristics, right? One is that they're always changing. They're also never at one place. You can almost never say, oh, you go over this mountain and then go there and then you'll find the main character, right? Almost never, because the main character is always mobile, just doing different adventures, doing different things, right? They also are on a mission. They're always changing. They're always learning new skills. They're always adapting the environment, right? They have a direction, and that's really important. And so during that time, I was thinking about how can I really become more like this and less like an NPC. So then I decided, hey, everything part of my life, right? Those are kind of like games. They're all about games, like I said, repetitive, right? But they're all about challenges, problem solving. You set a goal, you try to meet the goal. And when I saw my life, everything I'm doing, school, competitions, debate, I moved to the U.S. in middle school. So at that time, I was taking English as a second language. My English was pretty bad actually. And then I joined the debate team. So I got slaughtered like crazy. Everyone, because I barely spoke. I had a little translator. Like the guy's like, you said blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you know what's going on, right? And I got slaughtered. But I saw this. Hey, this is the game. Most games you play, you die at the beginning, right? You don't know what's going on, so you die, and then you learn and you get better. So I'm like, and eventually, I think most people, at least my English is good enough where I can be a speaker about it, right? So you can, if you see my middle school friends meet me, they usually get shocked, like, oh, you speak English now, right? I'm like, oh yeah. So how do you be like that, right? And so I've gone through a lot of things, and because when you play games, like I said, kids, when they are learning in school, they don't learn as much. They learn as much as they can to just pass the test, and they forget about everything, right? But when they learn how to play this game, you know, Pokemon cards, they memorize all this information. They're all that creative stuff. So it's usually a motivation challenge. So I kind of design a way to think about your life, and really just the 6 steps to really think about how can I design my life to do really what I want and pick what I want to do in terms of focus and life, right? So the first thing you usually do is to pick your game. Different people like different games, right? Like I said, some people just like the Candy Crush stuff. Some people like just golf. You know, some people, you know, shooting game and strategy game, very different. For records, I really hate playing shooting games. You know, I just don't know why. I just hate touching them. I just don't like it. But I really like strategy games. I'm a strategizer. I like to control things. And when you pick your game, it's really based on your passion. And what that means is you want to find things that you are excited about. Like, what do you want to get into, right? And you want to pick generic industries or fields. So like some people say, well, my game is I want to solve global warming, right? Or I want to solve poverty. Or, you know, I want to create a better search engine, right, in case of Google. But when you think about your game, don't factor in your talents yet, right? You know, a lot of people say, well, but I'm not good at it, I don't know. Don't factor in talents yet. And the reason is because I believe that at this point you're just thinking of what excites you. Like if you are, maybe you feel like, oh, I don't have any skills. Let's say you can only become a janitor, cleaning up for people, right? But if you are passionate about music, I believe you will be happier if you're a janitor for a music company than for a auto manufacturer company, right? So you want to identify, what am I passionate about? What am I interested about? What do I want to be around? What is my game, right? And if you have passion, it leads to better work ethics and more fun. So it's not even how well you do what you're doing in it. It's just I'm in something I'm passionate about. So you're having more fun, which means you have better work ethics, which usually also means that you might be more successful at it. The second part of it is determining a role, right? What are you going to do in this industry, in this field, right? And that part is based on your skills and interests. And a lot of games you have to pick. Do I want to be the warrior at the front, or do I want to be the magician wizard at the back that gets killed really easily but very powerful? And what you want to do there is you want to find your initial stats and build. So this is a question about things like, what are your innate talents? What are you good at compared to other people? And this is not like skills like social media. These are innate things. Like I'm good at memorizing, but not just I'm good at memorizing names. I'm bad at memorizing numbers. Or I am good at empathy, building relationships with people, understanding why they're people. So that's, again, what do you do better than anyone else? And in the game, you always see, like, hey, this character, the warrior has more strength. The magician has more intelligence sometimes. And so the key here is once you understand that better, you want to find something that matches your initial stats, right? If your talent's initial stats is in magic, right? Don't be an axeman, right? Because you could try to be an axeman, but you're just going to live your life through a lot of pain, right? Because you're just not built for that. So that's when you really understand. So this is where you can create something like a talent triangle. Most people, if you think hard and you explore different things, like part of it, it's not easy to just come up. You have to explore different things and really think. And a lot of times, the biggest problem with this type of stuff is you don't really know what you're really good at, because you don't know how hard it is for other people, right? Sometimes you just do it. It's easy. It's simple. But you think, oh, it's because it is supposed to be easy. And then sometimes there's this moment where you realize, hey, wait a second. Everyone else seems to have a lot of trouble doing this, but it's so easy, right? And they're like, and that's like a very amazing moment. It's like, wow, I'm talented in this. This is a talent, right? So talent triangle. So I believe there's usually want to define things like, so there's maybe one or two things that you're really, really good at, a few things that you're very good at, and then goes down, it's like, oh, pretty good, all this stuff. So I think I made this like 5-6 years ago or something, but that's what I thought I was. I'm good at associative thinking, making different connections, right? What I noticed is that I would say, when people say things like, hey, that made me think about that, or that you could do that, and people's like, Yukai, what are you talking about? There's no connection, right? And before I'm like, okay, I guess I'm a loser. I say random stupid things. But eventually I'm like, hey, wait a second. That's a strength, right? That means I can combine different ideas together, come up with more creative solutions when other people can, because my mind filters. Now, what I'm not good at is really deep calculations. Like I can't find one thing and just I don't have the patience for that. But I'm very wide in thinking, and so that helps me right now, right, with my gamification career, right? Because gamification really is two things, right? It's the game design, the behavioral economics, motivational psychology, and really plugging that into business applications that drive an ROI, right? And some people do one. They're good at driving business systems, and they understand games, but they don't like how do I bring the game stuff into this, sometimes all they know is, oh, look, there's points. Let's try points. There's some game designers who are good at creating games, but they don't understand how to drive business systems to create an ROI. They're like, look, I understand the game stuff, and business, you want to make more money than you lose, right? Revenue is higher than cost equals your profit, right? That's simple, right? But they just somehow can't make it into an integrated system. So that helps me, right? And I noticed at one point, people kind of like to trust me and follow me and follow what I do. So there's some leadership that I feel like that's trained or built into me. Emotional sensitive. I'm very sensitive to how people feel, and that might just be because I move a lot. When I was younger, I was born in Taiwan, moved to South Africa for 6 year, Taiwan, Kansas for 4 years, in Southern California. So I was always adapting to new environments. And I'm always trying to figure out what people here think or feel, because what was correct and polite at one place was offensive somewhere else. So I began to develop this automatic response. Like when I'm in a new environment, what do people feel here? Like what makes them angry? What makes them happy? Right? Because I'm trying to fit in. So I start training. So I'm not, obviously this is not about myself. I'm just giving examples. This is myself, but I'm just not going through all of it. But basically, you think through those things about your things you went through in life, and what are you really good at, and then you start figuring, okay, you start defining what are my initial stats, right? Once you understand your initial stats, and you know your role, right? I want to be this type of person in this type of industry. Then you start thinking about your skill sets. What do you need to learn to accomplish your goals, right? Yeah, and in a game, it's never like you learn the finals. It's always one skill that leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another. So most games the kids play, kids are amazing. Most people are terrible at planning their own careers, but kids, and adults too, I'm just saying kids because it's so easy. Kids are amazing at planning the character growth charts. And kids will know that, all right, by level 7, I'm going to learn this skill, and by level 19, I'm going to learn this one, but not this one, and I'm going to put all my points there. So they know exactly what they do at each level. That's almost like planning their career, except it's for the character, right? And they understand, like, this skill matched with this skill, matched with this skill, matched with that skill is the best combination. I'll have the strongest axeman, right? And if you screw up, then you'll have the axeman that does a little bit of this, a lot of that, and doesn't really do much. So which is important to focus on a few essential skills, right? It's hard to be a generalist. You want to figure out, so if I want to learn some skills, what are a few things that I should be very, very good at, right? And then you only want to invest in synergetic skills. So back to the context of a game, if you learn sword mastery, and then you learn axe mastery, and you just learn spear mastery, and you invest all these points, these skill points, into them, that's kind of pointless because you can only use one weapon at a time. You'd rather invest in sword first, and then jumping really high, and then iron skin, and then it has to be synergetic. Your skills have to work together. So you want to, if you learn, for instance, I want to be a character, I want to become something, and I'm going to learn Spanish, I'm going to be trilingual, and I'm going to focus another year in jumping really high. Those skills don't really help each other out much, right? Unless you plan to be like I don't know, like an international fireman, like you save lives, like you have to jump really high, run around, and you have to speak all these languages to save people. Then maybe, right? It's all about what you plan to do, right? And so at that point, you want to find your right skill triangle. So this is before it was based on initial talents, right? It's based on then you want to find out what are you really good right now. Same thing. What skills do you have right now that's really useful, and what and then it's like, oh yeah, maybe I'm good at this, I'm okay at that, I'm worse at that, and just basic triangle. This represent what you know what to do, and it could be like skills like Excel, Microsoft Excel. It could be PowerPoint. It could be video editing. It could be marketing. Marketing is a little broad, but if you think that is the thing you do the best, then sure. But you want to identify that, right? More importantly, you want to identify where you want to be, right? So in this case, hey, if I wanted to be the best in the world or best on my server, right, in gamification, right, what are the skills that I should have, right? I should, Octalis gamification, I'm very biased on this one, but Octalis, basically human-focused design, right? I should know game dynamics really well, business system. Remember I said combining the two makes you a better person on gamification. I obviously need to learn a lot about motivational psychology, behavioral economics. A lot of the gamification stuff is technology implementations. Not all of them, but I need to understand technology a bit, right? I can't be like, oh, so what is this cloud thing? What's data? I have to be well versed in that. Neurobiology, because a lot of motivation is brain science. I have to figure those out. Trustful persuasion, and then it goes down to, hey, it doesn't have to be my best thing, but I do have to know some SEO and social media. Remember I talked about how all I have to do is answer inbound leads for people asking me to be their consultant. It's because I mastered those two skills, really. I figure out how to build a site, and so whenever you Google gamification expert, gamification framework, what is gamification, my site is like number 1 or top 3. And this is actually very interesting because I don't want to downplay this. I believe that my stuff is really good, but remember when I stepped down as CEO of Reward Me? Before that, I was running gamification company, but I didn't have a brand as an expert in gamification. This was not too long ago. This was end of 2012. So like, well, not end, but middle. So like less than 2 years ago, I came out of Reward Me, and I know I liked gamification. I wanted to work in gamification, but I didn't have a real reputation there. And so I looked around the industry, and I realized, hey, look, there's a lot of people who have branded themselves as gamification experts and professionals. And I was looking at it, and so a lot of them come from different backgrounds. Some of them from enterprise software, some of them from marketing, some of them are from academics, some of them are game designers, right? And then I realized, hey, I have one skill set that most of them don't, right? Maybe because at that time I didn't do as much research on those people. I just dug into gamification. I just thought, hey, maybe they're just as good in terms of all the knowledge, all the stuff, and so a lot of them are. But I have one skill that don't. I have personal branding skills, SEO, social media, because I've been running a startup. I've been running a lot of startups. And if you know what a startup is it's a company that no one knows about, trying to be known by everyone with no resources, right? So with my startup, what we had to do is we had to constantly figure out how to do social media, engage people, SEO, build our brand, all that stuff. I'm like, so I have that one expertise besides gamification. So I'm going to use that one expertise to promote my other expertise. And I wasn't known by that. So then that's when I started doing stuff. I did the SEO stuff. I wrote a lot of posts that are SEO focused. If you guys don't know what SEO is, search engine optimization. Basically just how getting sites to be ranked high on Google so people can find you easily. And so I did all this stuff, and within a year's time, I got, and I do think Octalis has a lot of its merit. It is very useful. It's very powerful. But in a year's time, I got a lot of traffic. Every day there's more than 1,000 people who go on my site and who want to learn about gamification, and so they they talk to me, and so that helps me, right? I understand that I want to use one skill set to help my other, and then entrepreneurship, innovation, things like that. Keynote, it's good that I have some trilingual skills, and leadership before was a little high. Now it's like, hey, if I'm just a consultant, I'm not leading a big team. Leadership is still useful, but it's not the core on top. So I want to be very good at what I do. I want to be decent at promoting what I do. And, I also want some surrounding skills, Keynote, which is my software, to run all this stuff, to help presentations and whatnot, analytics, right? So this is important to understand. Understand where you are, what you need to learn to be where you want to be. Actually, let's take a step back here. So you can plan a lot of things interesting. Like I have a theory, and engineers agree with me on this. I believe if you want to be the best programmer, the best software engineer, I think in college you don't need to major in computer science. I actually think the best way to do it, if you have a very long-term strategy, is to double major in mathematics and philosophy, and in a grad school maybe study computer science. Because what I've learned is that a lot of times, I work with a lot of programmers, and I realize the good ones and the bad ones, usually it's not, who knows the programming language. It's more about who can solve these problems, right? Who can come up with the best algorithms. And math, right? Math teaches you the algorithmic skills, right? You can create algorithms. You can really create that structure that does what the program needs to do. Philosophy, that's the random one. Philosophy teaches you logic, right? When you learn philosophy, all you about is, this includes this, but does not include this, so therefore there's no meaning to life, or all that stuff, right? It's logic. And computers are logic slaves. So I believe if you have a long-term, if you learn math and philosophy together, and then that builds you, that makes you a very powerful programmer once you learn how to do the programming language, which for most people is relatively quick. So the next step is to find allies, right? You want to, in a game, you always work with people, right? You want to find people with the same passion, which means they're playing the same game as you, right? They want to solve global warming. They want to help poverty in India, or they want to bring the mobile industry. They want to expand the mobile industry in India, whatnot. But they have complementary skills, right? It's just like if you are a tank, then you need someone with higher damage behind you, stuff like that. Again, very biased examples, but so it's like if you're just a business person like me, then you want to ally up with people who can build things, right? Programmers, designers, and all that stuff, right? And even if you're just like working with businesses, sometimes say, hey, I'm the guy who does marketing, and this other guy's better at accounting, finances. Complementary skills works together. And you also want to find people who are much higher level than you are. So gamers all know this. If you play with someone that's higher level than you are, then he helps you go through all the difficult stages, and you level up much faster. Same in real life, right? Mentorship, right? You find people who has done this, who basically have done what you want to do, but have done it 10 years more than you, right? You want to be these people when you're like their age, right? And so when you connect with these mentors, they will help you. They build your character. They help you grow. And similarly, you want to help lower level people level up, right? You find people who are younger, eager, and driven out of college, whatnot, and you say, hey, I have a lot of experience. Let me teach you. Let me help you level up. And these people become your strong allies, and they're all, and you also have grown together. So during this time, part of what I do is I understand, and I'm sure everyone understands the concept, right? Networking is super important, right? It's you probably heard it's not who you know. It's not what you know, it's who you know, right? You want to meet people, and I think that's partially why you come to these conferences, to connect with different people and expand different opportunities and whatnot. So when I was in college, I created this thing called the Alliance Game, and it's not a real game. It's on an Excel spreadsheet, but basically everyone I meet, I put them on an Excel spreadsheet, and I just called it Alliance Game. But and I assigned them 3 numbers. The first one was level. 2 is power, and 3 is friendship. So level just means how successful they are at what they do, right? And 2 is power is just how talented they are, raw talent. So, and that's different from level because sometimes you have a genius guy who's still in college. He's still in college, so he's low level. He's not very successful in society yet, but he's very powerful. He's strong. And then friendship, how close you are to this person. And there's usually a 4th column. There's more like when did we meet and when's the last time I contact them, follow up. But then the 4th column is what's important. It takes these numbers into consideration. So if I wanted to, for instance, find who are the most powerful people that I'm not close to, right? I do, number 2 divided by number 3. So it'll give me a list by order. Like these are the people who are influential that you should be closer friends, but you're not, and that's always like a game for me. Or you're thinking about who among my friends are talented, smart, but they're not very successful yet. Number 1 divided by number 2, and then you're like, okay, so these are people with number 2 divided by number 1 are people who are smart and talented, but they're low level. Why? You don't know. But it's like if I can help them become high level, that's great, right? So when I go to a new city, I also document by city, it's saying I run a list like, 1 times 2 times 3. Basically, these are the most powerful, high-level people who I'm closest with. I need to catch up with these people, right? So I just play this game, and it became a thing. When I'm in college, like I just wanted to increase all that stuff. I want to grow the scores, right? So I network a lot, meet a lot of people, and I was genuine too. I love meeting people. I was also playing this game, and I genuinely wanted to help them level up too. I created this concept for vertical networking, which is hard. So there's 2 types of networking, 2 ways of increasing your network. One is to meet more people, right? Just get a lot of people you know. That's horizontal networking, and I created the concept of vertical networking, which is the concept of which is helping everyone in your network become better, right? And so I think vertical networking is a lot more useful and meaningful because you help them grow. You grow together, right? You help them get to where they are. And so you have a stronger bond, stronger network, and you're really helping each other out. And instead of just meeting a million people and they barely know you and you had a cup of coffee with each of them, right? So, and for networking, I think for a lot of people, there's also a fear of meeting new people, right? It's just like, yeah, I understand I should meet a lot of people, and networking is great, but how do I do it? It's like you can go to a conference. It's funny because when you go to a conference, it's like you see someone, and there's like a half a second when you see their eyes, and then there's a choice. It's like either look away, or it's like, hey, how's it going, right? And I'm guilty. Like people think I'm really social. I'm guilty. I always like want to look away, and it's just like it's kind of scary to meet new people, right? But remember, I think of everything in a gaming context. So nowadays, and so I started thinking about, hey, approaching strangers and networking, it's kind of like a harmless dragon. So there's this thing like your comfort zone, right? And outside of your comfort zone, there's this big dragon that looks evil, looks scary, and breathes fire. But you have to understand that you're invincible. The dragon can not ever harm you, right? Approaching strangers seems scary, but there's really nothing to lose. When you talk to them, the worst thing that can happen is that they say no, or that you never talk to them again, which is the default if you don't talk to them anyway, right? There's nothing you can lose. And actually, the actual very worst case is that you make someone feel good about himself, right? It's just like, oh, someone talked to me, but I don't want to talk to him. I'm so cool, right? And that's all. There's nothing you can lose. And so it's like this harmless dragon, and I always like to throw out this video that's kind of, I guess I do have a video, but it's kind of funny where it's like, you don't even have to listen. There's really no music. There's really no sound or content. So it's just the funny part of the game where it's like 1,000 years I've slept and now my powers regain, and he gets killed with 1 hit. It's like, and then he says the funniest thing afterwards. Yeah. So it's like, hey, it's intimidating. This guy says, I have absorbed evil power for 1,000 years, and now I'm back. I will take over the world. And then you hit it and it dies. And it's like, so I've lost. Humans are truly unpredictable. It's like, haha, right? Again, there's nothing you can lose by reaching out to people. Like, at most, you just make someone feel good. The next step is complete quest. So we talked about figuring out who you are, what game you're playing, the skills you want to, your initial stats, skills you want to learn, build allies, right? The next thing is really figuring out what quests you want to do. And those are small things that help you towards that final mission that you declared at the very beginning, right? Those are things that help you get experience. Because you identify, right, this is my skill tree, but I have not learned most of these skills yet. What should I do to learn these skills, right? And I think you guys are here to say, hey, maybe gamification should be part of my skill tree. Like maybe not on the very top, maybe on the side. It'll help me, motivational design. It'll help me somehow, right? So find small quests that can help you beat the final mission, right? Join some people's like, oh, I want to first work at Zynga for 2 years and then do this and learn as much as I can and go and start my own company, right? So it's the small quests that help you get there. And you want to level up and grow with teams. Remember you had these allies now? These small quests, you should bring those people in. Now, I love to have new projects that bring like, hey, programmer friend, hey, designer friend, let's do something cool. Let's do this together, right? And they're excited and all this stuff. So I think that's a great way to grow with teammates, right? As time goes by, you build trust. You know who are the people you can work with when you tackle that final mission, right? The final boss, right? You know who are the people that you've grown with that you can trust. And same thing, right? When you start quests, don't be persistent. Don't be afraid of rejection or failure. Remember we talked about in our other gamification talks, we talked about, hey, what are the user feedback? What can users look at? How can you keep score of how you're doing, right? So I kind of thought about it as like, hey, how can I measure how I'm doing my life? And it's hard to quantify, right? But just the sense of it, right? So I'm like, hey, okay, so maybe I figured there's probably 5 things that I should try to improve to play this game better, to level up in real life, right? The first thing is reputation, right? Basically, how well people know you. And number 2 is influence. Now, influence is a little different from reputation because a lot of people can know you, but you can't really make them do anything, right? So influence is really, how well, if people regard you highly, can you get them to do something? And then the network is really, who you actually know in your personal circle. Resources are like, most people understand this, like money, how much wealth you have, but also just, IP, things you can reach out to, your knowledge, and things like that. And then finally, it's the ability, right? So I'm just always thinking about how can I increase those 5 things, right? What does it help me? And this is back to design, right? And when we talk about gamification design, I always say everything you do, does it help your business metric? Does it make the users do the desired actions? Going back to my other design stuff, right? It's some people will tell me, hey, Yukai, let's put this in our product. And it's so cool, it's fun, right? And I'm like, but how does it help your business metric? Like, I'm not sure. It just seems really cool, right? And so when you're designing your life too, you should think about the same thing. Everything you do, you should think about, how does this help my business metric? How does it help me get closer to my goals, right? And it's it sounds like, oh, this is all like application stuff and whatnot, but kids do that all the time. It's fun. It can be fun if you think about it in a fun way and you see the purpose, you see the meaning. There's also the 8 core drives that drive your life, right? And we actually, I think I'll go into that a little bit. But once you keep doing that, the next stage is you beat the game, right? You finally learned enough skill sets. You've done all that. You beat the game. You fill your life with them. You created the search engine that's better than everyone else, right? But the key here is that when you do this, the journey there is what matters really. Most people, when they beat a game, that's not their most joyful moment. Their joyful moment is playing the game, right? So you want to, by going through this process, it's really about fulfilling life with meaning, and you really make every day count, right? A lot of people have big dreams, have big goals, but then today they're just watching TV. They're just not doing much. And I always say, like, if you want to accomplish uncommon things, then you have to live every single day of your life uncommonly, right? If you live your day like everyone else, then you end up like everyone else. Like, it's like simple math, if you can even call it math, simple logic, right? But you want to understand the whole point why this whole lifestyle gamification thing is so important is that the journey is the fun part, right? It's not necessarily about how well you do, what you do at the end. It's really, I have gone through the journey. I've ran startups before, and some have failed too, right? But they're all very meaningful because it's the journey I want. I'd rather take the journey I want, enjoy that process, and fail than be successful at a life someone else wants me to live, right? It's very important. Why would you live? Because that's someone else's success. It's not your success, right? And so when you beat a game, there are 2 things you can do. Right? Retire. Sometimes if you define your game in a certain way, if you beat the game, that means you can retire if you want to. And like most people, when they beat the game, they find a new game to master, right? Bill Gates, hey, I created myself, one of the biggest company ever. I became the richest person ever. My new game is philanthropy, like solving diseases in third world countries, right? Great game. He found a new game to play. And then people say, hey, will it come back to BC of Microsoft? And he said, no, I don't want to do that because I already beat the game. I want a new game, right? And I constantly want to go back to that. Don't be afraid. The journey is what matters. I get interviewed a lot in terms of startup entrepreneurship programs and like how do you get people to doubt the doubts, like to avoid the doubts. And one of the analogies I like the most is Super Mario, right? The first Super Mario game. Most people I talk to, they have played this game and they really enjoyed it. Fond memories, right? But I have not met a single person that I know that has beat this game before, right? And a lot of people don't want to do something because they are afraid of failure. It's like, oh, what if I do what I'm passionate about and I fail, right? But when you think about games, like no one says, oh, what if I can't beat Super Mario? I don't want to start. I don't want to play it, right? That doesn't make any sense, right? You play it because you enjoy, you want to play it, not because you can or cannot beat the game. And so the whole concept is that when you treat your life as a game, you already win when you start playing it because that's the goal. The goal of the game is to enjoy the game, not to beat the game. And then so I think that's really important. And when you think about your life, I guess I just usually when I do this little talk, I haven't taught people about Octalysis, but now I can quickly apply, right? You can think about in Octalysis what motivates you, right? What of the 8 core drive motivates you? Epic meaning and calling, right? It's like for me, right? I do want to change. I do want to make the world a better place. What I want to do is I want to take out the division between what people want to do and what people have to. For some reason, that's how the world works, right? There's things that you must do, but you don't like it, and then there's things that, hey, I can do it on my free time. What if that is no longer? What if it's combined? What if, like I said, all you have to do is play every day, have fun, enjoy, and then automatically you can support your family, your community is better, even your family somehow is closer together, you're better with friends. Like, that's amazing, right? What if everyone wakes up and excited to go to work? I think that's really changing the world, right? When everyone's excited about going to work, they will enjoy their lives more. Their companies will be more productive. Their companies will perform better because everyone actually wants to do the job, and then society overall will be more productive, right? Epic meaning and calling. Development accomplishment, right? I can track a lot of things. Am I growing in this? Am I improving my skills? Am I finishing each stage, right? Oh, I have another talk. Hey, I have a TEDx talk early next year. Hey, I'm speaking at South by Southwest. So these are all my metrics. I feel, hey, I'm growing, I'm developing, I'm accomplishing. My core drive number 2, very important for motivation, right? Empowerment of creativity and feedback. I really like my job because it allows me to be creative, right? I can see, hey, this is how I'm going to design a gamification campaign. See how people behave, if it hits the metric, and then move it around, change it, right? So that's fun too. Ownership and possession. Of course, it's my life, my company. I also have my company. It's my company, right? I have full ownership over it's the path I chose, right? It's not the path my mom chose. Maybe if she wants me to be a lawyer or a doctor, yeah, I can do that, but I don't feel ownership over it. It's really her stuff, right? So that's motivating. Social influence and relatedness. I think partially is like, hey, when I'm doing this, my friends think I'm cool. I think that's part of it, but because I've moved around, so at one point in my life, remember I moved around and I was really sensitive to how everyone thought about me and how to fit in. I think a big turning point in my life is also realizing that I don't have to really be controlled by what other people think about me. I can just do what I feel like is a good person should do. And so my motivation core drive, the social influence related, shrunk by quite a bit. I'm not necessarily pushed by what people think. But I also want everyone around me to be happy, so that motivates me too. Scarcity and patience. I'm always still hitting new goals, right? This industry, gamification, is still very nascent. It's still very early on. There's so much to explore at this point. I think 5 years later, we're going to look back at today. It's like, haha, look how little we knew about all this stuff, right? And I feel like there's so much that's still barred away from me that I can't obtain, I can't get, and that motivates me. I'm always I'm a hardcore gamer. When I can't beat a stage, that drives me. Easy games are not as motivating for me. But I want something that's hard, that I can really, that when you actually beat it, it's accomplishment. Unpredictable curiosity, core drive 7, right? Obviously, every day of my life is different. I never know what's going to happen. I never know what I'm designing. I don't know. I can never predict what's going to happen next. Kind of like I know today I'm going to be speaking at a conference. But, more or less, there's a lot of unpredictability. And I'm always learning about new things, seeing new gamification examples, all that stuff. A lot of them are really inspiring. This is the tough part, by the way. A lot of people will ask me, hey, this gamification example, what did you think about that? Or this gamification company. And it's like they expect me to know everything, what everyone's doing out there, right? And that's more than a full-time job. So yeah. So I don't. So it's like, hey, Bunchball 2 days ago announced this little new feature. Do you think it's good or bad? I don't know. I'm not obsessed about Bunchball, right? Yeah, loss and avoidance. Part of I think loss and avoidance is, again, I don't want to waste my time, waste my life, right? And then I think at one point, this ties to ownership, right? When you choose to take your own path, sometimes there's a thing like, oh, I don't want to be a total big failure, so everyone's going to be, I told you, you should just be a doctor or something, right? So again, it's things to think about, right? What motivates, what drives you? And when you think about your life as a game, I really think the quality of your life would be better. And you're spending every day with more purpose. You understand the goals. What are you trying to accomplish? You're planning it out better. You're engaged in the process, not just, oh, today is another day, and what I eat yesterday, right? Anyway, so that's something I'm really passionate about. I know it's not the enterprise ROI stuff, but I think it's more important. So I love sharing about all this stuff, and so I love to answer any questions, same stuff, and hopefully you guys have some questions about it. And thank you. Anyone got questions?
I have a question, but it's not related to this session actually.
Okay, no problem.
It's a general question that I wanted to ask previously, but it was lunch break and everybody was running off.
You guys can all do that too.
So I just want to find out if there's any way to know whether your business model is suitable for gamification or not. Is there a way to know beforehand whether you will benefit from gamification or whether it's going to be actually a sort of a wasted effort, or in which area you should focus your gamification efforts?
If it deals with machines, then it doesn't help. You can gamify everything besides machines and also a game. You can gamify a game because it's already a game. Now, good gamification is the assumption, right? Because we talked about in my last session, I talked about implicit, explicit gamification. Sometimes explicit gamification, you can actually create a game, people opt in. That's sometimes unnecessary. That's sometimes too much, right? Implicit gamification, like I said, is just little things like a doorknob. It's invisible. It pushes people towards the right direction, right? So I believe that as long as there's motivation within your product or whatever you're trying to do, you should think through gamification and human-focused design. And the output doesn't have to be, sometimes the output is really simple. Sometimes no one can tell it's gamification. Like I said, some of the examples, Woot.com, right? Woot.com, I don't think they think about themselves as gamification. No one else does. But I recognize, hey, those are two really strong core drives that you find in games a lot, right? And so I really, in my talks, I really focus on, don't be obsessed with the game mechanics, game elements, right? You can learn a ton from games, but it doesn't have to be, oh, we need like an animation character or we need this. No, it's more about you learn the gamification design. And most people, it's not about whether they should do it or not, is they do it really badly. So as a result, they probably shouldn't have done it. More questions? This session, last session, over there.
I think it's great when you talk about how one can explore these different options and skills that you learn. But when you're trying to choose a skill and when you need to explore different areas and you're actually not sure what you're good at in the start, you actually sort of have to explore first before you can identify this is what I'm going to be good at.
Mm-hmm.
So in your game of life example, where do you actually start this exploration phase where you can actually then choose between different suites and then only develop a suite?
Yeah, consistently. This is not something where you sit down for an hour and say, ta-da, people in college, young professionals, right? It's like, yeah, I really should know plan about my career, but I just don't know where to start or I don't know what to do, right? And it's like, that's why you should spend time on it, right? If you spend time on it, if you explore, you try different experiences, you look into stuff, then you would know. But most people's like, well, I don't know, so therefore I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to start looking into it, right? It takes time. It takes adding more experiences, look into more stuff, right? Even watching TV, like sometimes you slip channels. Like for some reason, whenever I watch wildlife animals, I stick to the channel. But if I watch like architecture, buildings being built, I don't care, right? Maybe it's the other way around. So you have to. So my whole point is you can't just live every day just doing the same thing, not thinking about it. Oh, it's intimidating. I don't want to think about it. You do have to continue to explore and understand yourself. Like what are you passionate about? Even the first step. What am I passionate? What is the game I want to play? That requires a lot of time and thinking, right? It really you have to understand yourself, and that's not like most people. Almost no one I meet walks around and says, "Ha! I know the game I want. I know what I'm passionate about." Right? It takes self-exploration. My problem is that most people don't spend time on it, and I think it's really, really important to spend time on it. Yeah. Hopefully that kind of answers your question.
Hi.
Sorry.
So game addiction is also a big issue, right? And most of the games are engaging. That's why users get so addicted. And there are cases where people have played for 72 hours at a stretch. So how do you draw the line? How do you adopt ethical habit-forming technologies here?
Apply forms and technology.
Ethical habit-forming technologies, because these are all habit-forming technologies.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, so the key here is not about, and that's another talk that's almost like an extension of this, on the day-to-day tactile level, like, what are the systems, programs you can do to help your, like, should you use zombies run, or should you use what kind of to-do list should you use, what's that system, right? But what I'm explaining here is not really a technology application, it's really a philosophy. It's an outlook of life. You're designing how your life is. So it almost has nothing to do with technology. And you're saying that what if a person doesn't have experience in those games that I've talked about? Is that what you're talking about in terms of, I'm trying to understand your question very well, but I just feel like it has nothing to really do with technology and habit building. Sure, a lot of games are habit building, but you build habit for a purpose, right? You have a goal, you're trying to level up, you're trying to beat the game, you're trying to build allies, and I'm just saying you can learn a lot from that. And then you can build the same habits in your real life, right? In the game, first there's these things that you want to move forward on, and then in the game it trains you to do the same things every day. Like I have a friend who wanted to be the best architecture he could. And so since middle school, he creates a schedule about this time I'm doing this. And he's like, he has to take out all the famous artists' work, and he traces their work. He has to trace them. Today I'm tracing this guy's work. Next day I'm tracing. So he's just training his fingers to draw it better, right? It's very habit building. It's repetitive. But the whole point is he understands his goal. He wants to be a high-level architecture, right? And then so through that drive, he makes decisions, he designs his life. He spends time leveling up. And that's very important. He spends time designing what he needs to do every day, habit building. What are the habits he needs to build? How to get closer to his goal? How does he level up? And eventually, he got into the best architectural university in London, and then he's doing a lot of creative work. And so that's what I'm talking about. Habit building is more like a system. Just like games, right? Clients will say, oh, we don't have the budget to make a real fillable game, right? And I'm saying games, in gamification, you don't need technology necessarily, right? Games, it could be World of Warcraft, which is a lot of technology, a lot of graphics, or it could be hide and seek. No technology, just rules, right? And people still have fun with hide and seek, right? So I'm saying games aren't fun because of the technology, because of the platform. It's because there is a rule. It's a way of thinking. Really, games is a real...
And avoidance against active disengagement. If I feel that I'm going to lose something or something like that, I will be in the game. But if I lose that in the game, so it might lead to active disengagement. So I might feel that I'm not coming to the system again. I might lose the trust against the system.
Okay, loss and avoidance. Carefully control that. Generally, as a rule of thumb, not scientific or anything, just rule of thumb, when you make someone lose something because they didn't do the desired actions, it should be relative to the labor that what they already put in, what they already have, right? If you spend 10 days doing something and you screwed up and you lose all 10 days of result, you're going to feel demoralized and you're going to stop. So usually you don't want anyone to lose more than a third of what they have built up. In a game, if you play for 10 hours, and then you die, you're backtracked by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? So it's like, oh, I don't want this to happen, so obviously I'm going to avoid this still. But it's not, if it happens, it doesn't demoralize you. And that's something really important. All the 8 core drives, could be like a big chapter of a book, or a book of its own. And so there's all these little technical questions about all these core drives. So hopefully that answers your question.
Any use for enterprise applications, how we will apply the concepts, it will be different. And for e-commerce based applications, the concepts will be completely different. Why? Because the profiles, personas, the scenarios, and the environmental profiles, all is completely different. And it's all about the psychological point of view, how we have to determine our users, who are our end users. So any principles for any UX principles, that's the thing I am asking, while implementing in our applications.
Okay. So, yes, companies, solutions, problems are all different. There are 2 things that I think are the same throughout. One is, like you said, people are the same, motivation is the same, which is why the 8 core drives are so useful. And then 2 are the process to figure out, to me, from all the examples I've seen, is the same too. The same thing like talked about in the last talk, like define the business metrics. What do you want to improve, right? That's all, e-commerce, enterprise, product design, healthcare, learning, and I deal with all these concepts, right, as my work. They all need business metrics. They all need desired actions. They all need to figure out the user. They all need incentives, right? So that process is the same, and people are the same. So you take people, you put that in process, and then you come up with solutions. The solutions are all over the place, right? So that's usually not a huge issue. Was that what was your question? I heard.
Actually, you are 50% right. The question itself is how to implement the concepts in our applications.
Yeah. So how to implement? So when you walk through these processes, you'll start figuring out how you have a set of things you can do, right? How to bring out these 8-core drives, right? And I don't know what you're doing or what he's doing, so I can't give a generic answer here. All I can say is understand the motivation and understand, hey, look, if we add this, it could really bring out this core drive into this application, right? So that, like you said, is too varied, so I can't just say, hey, you do this, and it's implemented, right? And so that's why the EGC, Enterprise Gamification Consulting, we are very focused on, now I do a lot of other work because I like startup stuff, but like Mario, right? Mario Herger, his stuff is very focused on enterprise, workplace, employee motivation. So he can say, this is the process, right? This is how you determine a budget. This is how you implement it. This is how you pass through legal. This is how you do compliance, right? That's a process. But when you just say, hey, gamification, just anything like that, then it's hard. Then it's just, I can tell you how to design, go through the steps to design motivation, but how it's exactly implemented. Is it one line of code, 10,000 lines of code, or is it just a piece of paper on the wall that tells you the rules? It just depends. More questions? Cool. Looks like we don't have some questions. Yep, so feel free to email me. I'm usually good at answering my emails, but it's getting a little harder. But yeah, send me an email. I usually get in Octalysis. If you want to learn more, go to octalysis.com. Thank you.